Let's take a trip. And I can guarantee you this trip's going to be a lot faster than what me and Darla did. As far as it's 12 hours over there. In 12 hours, we left New York. We had to leave Tulsa first, but I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. But we got to New York, and we left New York at midnight. Got to Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, actually. I think it was, I don't know, we had breakfast, so it was probably 10, 11 o'clock. Time we got there, maybe noon. And then we drove up to Tiberias. Where was that? Go ahead and start the show, Letha. So just to give you an idea, on the right side is Israel. Shows you how far it is. We spent the majority of our stays in the hotels was up near the Sea of Galilee, up there in that box, Tiberias, down to Jerusalem, which says it's about 90 miles. So about from here to Oklahoma City, a little bit, like that. Now Israel is a lot longer than that. It goes on down. If you can see, I didn't even, just barely included to the Variant at Eliot. That's on the Red Sea. That's all the way down to the bottom of Israel. So it's another 90, 100. So totally it's probably 200 miles up and down. Across, it's maybe only 40 miles. Now you see at the narrowest, or least, you see there's two colors over here. The dark orange, which is Israel, and the light tan is what they call, the media calls the West Bank. And remember that, and I'll show you a slide right at the end. That's not true, okay? That area is not true. But we started out over here on the left at Tiberias. So we're on the Sea of Galilee, and go ahead and go to the next one. This is a picture of that evening when we got there. My aunt took this picture on the left. That's from our hotel room. So you can see we're right there, 100 yards or so, 200 yards from the Sea of Galilee. And we got back the first evening pretty early. So if you can see down the left side, there's kind of an alley to our hotel, okay? This was in that area. On the right side they're having a little fair going on. So we went down through there. They're selling wares, and on down through there they had some carnival rides and things like that. So sometimes people get the feeling that it is a third world country. It's not. They are way up in their internet, all the electronics and everything. So they are a very rich country as far as their abundance of things. They've made things grow in the desert. We'll be showing just a little bit of that. Go ahead and go to the next one. First day we started out in Capernaum. Anybody know, without reading the sign, what Capernaum's known for? It says Matthew 4:13, and leaving Nazareth, he, Jesus, came and dwelt in Capernaum, which is by the sea in the region of Zebulun and Naphtali. So we were in the town of Capernaum, what they called it there. Went out of this is a church on the right-hand side. Everywhere we go, they built a church. Somebody has built a church. The Greek Orthodox, the Roman Catholics, everybody's, because some of them, even the Muslims built some synagogues or mosques because Abraham was there or whatever. So many times we'll see there's many, many churches right around there. And behind this is where my Uncle Doug's standing, is the Sea of Galilee. This is also the place where they believe the loaves and the fishes were multiplied. That's by the sign that's showing it, the 2 fish and the loaves. So right there in this area somewhere, they believe it is. Go ahead and go to the next one.
Did you fish?
We did not. We didn't have time. Now, I didn't catch some fish, but I ate some fish. And I'll show you that in just a minute. So this is the back of the building right here in this lower right picture. The scriptures goes with this that in John 21:4-5, but when the morning had now come, Jesus stood on the shore, yet the disciples did not know that it was Jesus. Then Jesus said to them, children, have ye any food? This is after the resurrection, okay? go on down to 9 and 10, said, then as soon as they had come to land, they saw a fire and coals there, and fish laid on it, and bread. Jesus said to them, bring some of the fish which you have caught. The sign right there, it says, this is holy ground. They believe that's where he cooked the fish. They believe that stone goes on up into the church, and there's another, it's a big old long stone, big old top stone. So it's up in the church too, and they pray, they do all their things about it. So this is also Peter's hometown. Go to the next one. These two statues, one of them on the left is Peter, and it's showing him as the fishers of men, the way he was saying. And it's hard to read. I didn't even look, see what the says there, but somebody can get up close. On the right-hand side, who is that? If it's Jesus' hometown, Jesus. He didn't have a home. He was homeless. We think of homeless people. He would spend the night in different homes or sometimes just out. A lot of times we see he was out in the desert praying. He was out doing these things away from the other people. So he was there by himself. So this statue represents kind of the homeless Jesus. He did not have a place to lay his head. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is Peter's house, where they believe Peter's house was. They show a little sign there, has a lot of description. This is part of it, and I'll flip it here. All of these things set the stage for you. All these towns and all these roads and all these things, when they say Jesus walked here, there's only two places that will show you, at least one place where Jesus actually walked, where we know that road's original. These stones are black. Anytime you see the black stones, they told us those are original. Those are the ones that date back to the time of Jesus. There will be some other stones you'll see here in just a minute that are lighter colored. Those are the Byzantine period, or after Jesus, where the Romans went ahead and come in and they built and all these other things. So this was, and this time period even goes back, dates before Jesus. So go ahead and go to the next one. Of course, they built a church on it. That's on top of it. So where we were standing, down where Peter's house is, it's probably 15, 20 foot down. They excavated all this to see where Peter was at, or where his house was. So it says, then they went into Capernaum, Mark 1 and 21, and immediately on the Sabbath he entered the synagogue and taught. Down in 29 says, now as soon as they had come out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. So here again, recognizing in Capernaum was where he lived. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is a close-up. This is right down there. If you see, and I didn't bring a laser pointer, see the little white pamphlet that's there? That stone that goes north and south is part of the lintel. The one that goes horizontal across is the door frame. Okay? Very right-hand side, in that rock, you can kind of see a little dark spot. That's hollowed out. You can't really tell it. That's where the hinge went. The pin went down. That's where the door swung open and wide, to go in the house. So you went in to that Peter's house. And when he was there, he had to squat down and go, no, I'm just kidding. That mosaic wasn't there, of course. All the house was there. So it was at that particular time, and it wasn't underground at that time, okay? So what we're seeing, so those stones right there were probably one of the time. There's another time coming up. Jesus, when he went to the house, this is probably where he went. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is Capernaum by the sea, and we see it was a fairly big town, relatively. Now you can see here in the front on both pictures the dark colored stones. They're actually granite or obsidian, not obsidian, but really dark granitic rock, volcanic rock. Back in the back, you'll see the white stones. That's the synagogue, part of the synagogue. It's not the one Jesus taught in, but it's probably on the same place, because they probably just built above it after it was burned and things came on. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is inside that synagogue. you can see the difference in the two stones. The bottom layer, they just built right on top of it. The very, very bottom is the floor. And it was a fairly large, it's probably as big as this or half as big as this auditorium that we're in. And that's where Jesus taught. Up there, the little red spot is where the teaching seat was. Whenever Jesus or whoever was speaking at that time, they would stand and read the scriptures. And after they'd stand and read the scriptures, they would sit down and he would expound on it or people would ask questions. Okay? And there's a scripture there, the Mark 1:21 that we read. Okay, go to the next one. Next time we went on to the Sea of Galilee, which is also known as Kinneret or Tiberias. The Jews usually call it Lake Tiberias or Sea of Tiberias. It's really a lake because it is freshwater. It's not a sea. A sea is usually salty. But it got the name Sea of whatever, Galilee. We know as Galilee, Kinneret. Deuteronomy 3:8 says, "And look, at that time we took the land from the hand of one of the two kings of the Amorites who were on this side of the Jordan, from the river Arnon to Mount Hermon." Now, why does this apply here? See that mountain back here in the back? That's Mount Hermon. That's the very, we'll come to another map in a minute and I'll show you. That's the very most northern part of Israel. Today, that's actually in Jordan or Syria. It's right in the very top of it. Okay? And we was there in late May, early April. Still snow on it. Yep. Okay, go on to the next one. We took a boat ride out there and everything. Right off of that, where we was leaving back and forth, the scripture says, "And seeing the multitudes, he went up to a mountain, and when he was seated, his disciples came to him." This is where they believe that he taught the Beatitudes. It's kind of looking down on a hillside, going down into the Sea of Galilee, so they think, and of course the church is there, where they think that's where it was built, or where Jesus had. It's called Mount Beatitude. Okay, go to the next one. Okay, from there we went on to Caesarea Maritime, which is on the sea, or on the Mediterranean Sea. Now, if you go up there and see Tiberias, that's the lake, the Sea of Galilee. On up there where it says Syria, that's kind of on the very most northeastern part. That's where that mount was. Where it says Golan Heights, it's on further north of that even, that Mount Hermon was. So that scripture in Deuteronomy was telling them where they're going to take their land from. They take it from there to there to there. A lot more than is included right now. This area, this plot of land, was given to Herod as a gift from Augustus Caesar, or Caesar Augustus. Herod then built a palace there by the sea. Okay, go to the next one. This is part of that because he had a town, and there's a theater that they built in that town. The theater seated about 10,000 people. We'll see a picture of it in just a minute. And by Roman standards, they would make a theater to fit one seat per 4 people in the city. So we figure that it was about 40,000 people that lived around Caesarea at this time. That hole in the wall right there, they are still excavating it. They believe that that's where Paul was kept. Okay, when he went to go, Festus and Felix interviewed him. Acts 25:4 says, "But Festus answered that Paul should be kept at Caesarea, and that he himself was going there shortly." And if you keep on reading it, it tells a lot about it. He stayed there close to a year, maybe 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. And I didn't take one picture, but if you can see back behind that fence, there's a grate, and you could look down in it. And so they've excavated some of that. So when they say he's in jail, he's in the ground. So when it rains, he gets the rain, all that stuff. They do have to bring water in. That's salt water. That's the Mediterranean Sea. So this is an aqueduct that's coming from the north, from the mountains that they had up there, brings the water across to the town. So, and it's still there in place today. I don't think it has any water running, but Go ahead and go to the next one. Here's the Colosseum that they built. Every large town usually had a Colosseum. The first two rows there, or at least that first row, is original. You can see how the stones differ from the ones above it. The ones above it, they do. They have concerts there now. I didn't take the reverse, but they have a big stage built there. It's in wood. Underneath it, they have the dressing rooms, and it looks out. You're looking out onto the Mediterranean Sea from there. Just down from that is this. Anybody recognize? I know all the people there, but kind of hard to see where I was taking. There's a bunch of stands over there, and it goes way down there and comes back around this side. Ben-Hur, where they raced the chariots, that's where they filmed it, okay, right there. They filmed some of it where people was in the stands cheering and all that stuff. They had horse races, the chariot races here for the entertainment of the Romans, okay? Go to the next one. Now we're moving on down, and we didn't do all this in one day, okay? Now we're moving on down to the Valley of Jezreel. If that doesn't ring a bell, it's called Megiddo. If you want, yeah, there you go. It's the Armageddon. This is the valley that's shown. It just is kind of shows you the box where we're blown out here, and then this and the bottom box is even more blown out. Right in the middle, you can see it says Jezreel Valley through that middle part. It's surrounded by Mount Carmel, Mount Tabor, Mount Megiddo, and Mount Gilboa. Anybody recognize any of those mountains? It's where some of the Israelites, Elisha beat up the Carmelites, the priests of, Ahab and his people. Mount Carmel is mentioned. Mount Tabor is mentioned. All these sites are mentioned in the Bible in there. Megiddo is spelt different, but okay, go to the next one. This is the Tell of Megiddo, or Megiddo. Tell in their language is hill or mountain. So as you come up to this, all these, when you'd build something, or the people built, they always wanted to build it like a fortress. So it's on top of a mountain. So you entered in the gate here, is where the people are going in on the right. This is where you walked up to the top of the mountain, going up that way. Now we didn't, they didn't, they had modern stairs here, more modern stairs. And as you can see, it says 20 different cities have been built, tore down, burned, whatever, sacked, and rebuilt. 20 different cities on the top of Megiddo. So you'll see here in a minute, there's these big hills over there, just rounded hills. And that's what it was. It was probably a former city. And that's where they go to start excavating to see. And you'll see in just a minute how they date some of these figures. Go ahead and go to the next one. As you get on top of the mountain, you can see, even up there, it's pretty. And we're looking out now into it. You can kind of see that one round mountain like I was talking about? That's another Tell, right in the middle of those three. On the right side, there's a mountain, and it has two little spikes. It's hard to see from here, but it has two little spikes. That's what we would call Mount Hattin. Does that ring a bell to anybody? That's where the church has placed a marker. Church of God of Prophecy has placed a marker on Mount Hattin. They believe that's where Jesus, the Transfiguration took place, where the church was started, where upon this rock I will build my church. That's the scripture. So Revelation 16:16 said they gathered them together to the place called, in the Hebrew, Armageddon. That's in Revelation. If you read Judges 4:2-8, there's been 11 different wars around the Judges area fought in this area. Because this was prime. If you go back to that map, that linked up Europe with Asia, and down south going to Africa. That was a valley, a big wide valley that was a crossroads where people didn't have to go across mountains. They could travel in this valley, and it'd be relatively easy. One of the most famous judges that fought out here was Deborah. You can read about her in Judges. Go ahead, go to the next one. being a city that was protected or had a wall about it, they had to get water. They could last there for a long time. Megiddo, and in a little bit you'll see the next one. Can't think of the name of it. We'll see it in a minute. The one to the south, they had to find water, so they dug down. There was well outside of there. So in order, they covered it up, but they dug down inside the town where they could go and get the water. So here we are walking down, some of us walk down probably 100 feet down the stairs, and then you come to the walkway and you walk probably 100 yards or maybe 200 yards underground, and you come over to the spring, and that's it over on the right-hand side. Now today, you probably wouldn't want to drink that water. It looks pretty nasty, pretty muddy. But it was at that particular time, an active spring bubbling. They would come and get the water, walk back, carry it up, and that's the way they would fill their cisterns. They would build big tanks in the ground, rock tanks, and fill it with water. So that's some people, they did that all day, just going back and forth, filling the tanks, filling the water for them. Okay, go to the next one. Now we go to Cana. This is where Jesus turned water into wine, and you can see it's highlighted here on the left, Cana. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. Of course, the church is on it. We were going inside the church to look at this stuff. This is on the door. That's what they call the Jerusalem cross. It would be a cross and then 4 little crosses around it. That's kind of the Crusaders symbol that they had, that they put up. You can go to the next one. Now this is the church that's above the house. John 2:1-3 says, on the 3rd day there was a wedding in the Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Now both Jesus and his disciples were invited to the wedding. And when they ran out of wine, the mother of Jesus said unto them, they have no wine. And you can go ahead and read the rest of the scripture for yourself. But on the left-hand side, here's the excavation. When they did the excavation, they start finding these coins, these pots, these things, and they date those back to the time and before the time of Jesus. So each one of them, they'd have different time periods that they were from, and they would tell you. So they know here again that this was probably when it was used. This is floor level, or where you walk in from it, that floor on the right. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is, we walked out of that room into this room. Here again, it's down below. So it's kind of in the basement, if you want to say. That's looking down into where they would entered the house. The right-hand side shows you some of the rock that they had. They had partitions where you couldn't climb on it and stuff. But that's part of the house on the right-hand side that you can see. We're in a room, and we don't know how, it may have been where they were actually having the wedding. We don't know. Or it may have been in the courtyard. That may have been in the courtyard outside. Go ahead and go to the next one. Here we see on the right-hand side is a new door, a rebuilt door. On the left, you can see the original door, the little arch that's starting. But that all was what was all left from there. So they rebuilt it so it would stabilize it a lot. And there are some of the pictures and some of the things that they would have. On the right-hand side, you can't tell it very much, but that pot's about this big around. You couldn't put your arms around it. You couldn't get it. That's plexiglass on it, so they couldn't touch it. But it says in John 2:6-7, now there were set there 6 water pots of stone according to the manner of purification of the Jews, containing 20 or 30 gallons apiece. They believe that is not maybe one of those, but it's like it. Okay, it's from that time period. Likely, it could have been one of them. We don't know. But it would take, if you looked in it, it'd probably take 20 or 30 gallons, take 4 or 5-gallon buckets to fill it up. And they used stone because it would not be contaminated. The water wouldn't be contaminated, and they used it for purification, so that it would keep the water clean. Where wooden ones, you could get bacteria in it or anything like that. So these wasn't something that you'd lift up. They're probably 3 foot around, that outside rim of it. It's huge, 3 or 4 foot. Okay, go to the next one. And there in Cana, you can kind of, this is kind of jumping. It's not Canaan, but it's jumping. To the north in Galilee, we're shifting down to Jerusalem now, okay? To the north, really nice, green. There's a lot of orchards, a lot of vegetation, farming going on up there. And there is farming going in the south also. We saw lots of it, but a lot of it looked like that bottom picture. If you can see the little black figure on the left, that's a shepherd, and he's got his goats out there. That's a Bedouin that actually they're trying to find some food for their goats out there. You can see a little bit, but not much. It's pretty harsh out there. And this just shows you in Jerusalem what the signs look like. They do have English on it, but the top one is Hebrew, middle one is Arabic, and then the bottom is English. Okay, go ahead to the next one. We went down to Bethlehem, and as you can see, it's in that light picture, the light tan. Okay, it's almost due south and a little bit west of Jerusalem, and it's in what they call Palestinian territory. Palestine, the Palestinians, have full rule over that. Our guide, which was Jewish, could not go with us there. If she did, they would pull her off the bus. We had to pass through a toll, like a passport control. And our bus driver, he was Arabic, so he was okay. But we picked up another guide over there. He was Christian, but he was Palestinian, or he lived there. And Bethlehem, it's expanded over here on the left side. Again, it's kind of on a mountain. Over on the right, you'll see fields of Boaz, the lower right. Shepherd's Field, there's another Shepherd's Field, the Franciscan. You can see they kind of differ on where they think the shepherds may have been. Left is the Church of the Nativity, where they think one of the places where Jesus was born. Up on the top is another Old Testament reference. That's where Rachel was buried. So as we go on, go ahead and go to the next one. Just a little funny. They don't have Starbucks over there. They got Stars and Bucks Cafe, or Square Bucks on the left side. But it looks just like it. And those were probably a block apart when we was walking. They was just right there together. It's just kind of funny. Go ahead and go to the left, next one. This is the shepherd's field. Again, they think this is where the shepherds saw the star from Bethlehem at night, and then they went to Bethlehem to see the Christ child. The field, they're calling it Gloria in Excelsis Gladios Deo. Inside that is a tomb, and I don't think I brought any pictures for that, but it's a dome. It was echoing. We sang in a couple of those domes. The acoustics was great, really good. Go ahead and go to the next one. And then there's also, just to give us a little bit of thinking where the shepherds was, in Luke 2, 8 through 10 says, "Now there were in the same country shepherds living out in the fields, keeping watch over their flock by night. Behold, an angel of the Lord stood before them, and the glory of the Lord shone around about them, and they were greatly afraid. Then the angel said to them, 'Do not be afraid, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which will be to all people.'" This is a cave. And the guide told us there are many caves in that area, and at night they would either have what we'd call the sheep pen that's up on the deal, or they would have a cave, and they would put the sheep in there at night, and they would lie across the doorway, so nothing could get in, the sheep couldn't get out. And it was kind of a low ceiling. You had to, back in the back part, you sure had to kneel or squat down or you'd hit your head. And several of these places, you can see, we had a service. They had places where you can have services. So we had a little prayer time here, and see some of the people that was with us. We're in the back, Darla and I there, if you can see. Trying to not get too many of us in there. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is outside there around that area, so we can see that they did have some agriculture, some things going on. All those little sheds, that's for places where they had excavations going on. That's an old, again, water holder, casket, a big one over here on the right. It could hold oil, could hold anything. They could use it. They had several presses. I don't know if I got one in these pictures, but that's outside of that, on that hill coming down from, we saw the shepherds. There's a valley going through the shepherd's field up to Bethlehem. So it was a little trek for the shepherds to go to Bethlehem. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. Inside Bethlehem is where they believe Jesus was born. The Church of the Nativity is built there now. We went there on a Sunday morning. This is going into the church. The church is back in that kind of above that red car. And then I turned around and looked this way, and you can look out. That parking lot was packed. So the people that got there first, they couldn't leave until everybody else in front of them left. Okay, go to the next one. And this is the way you got in. This is that little enclave that was there, and you came down, and that's the doorway right there. Okay, you see 3 doorways there. You see a big, large one. That was not, of course, this was after Jesus. They built this church, probably 300 or 400 BC, or AD. And then the Ottomans, I believe it was, built it next, took over this area next. And because of that, they didn't want the people with the horses coming into the church and defiling it and everything. So they built that archway, the smaller doorway, so you could still get in, but horses couldn't go through. And then the smallest doorway is what they had most recent. And that's where we had to go in by. So you could only, and you'd had to squat down like they're doing there. It's probably 4 foot tall that you had to go through. Our guide, he's there in the blue shirt. You can see him right there. He's telling us. He took several NBA players, individual tours. Shaq couldn't go fit through that. He had to come in the back way. They're just too big and too tall. Okay, go on. And this is inside the church. Once you get inside, it's elaborate. Okay, you got 2 different churches here going on. They're actually having church up there that you can see. That's where the people are gathered. And they're having church down in the cavern below where that's at too. They're having church. And we had to wait there for about an hour and a half until the church finished. It was about 11:30 before we could go in. So we just waited around and got there as early as we could. You can see all the ornate things that they had on it. This was during the time, Constantine. His mother was very much a Christ follower, and when they built this church, a lot of this was gold. They had plated on it, especially up there, the paintings you can kind of see. When the Ottomans came through, they started stealing gold, taking the gold off and everything like that. So what did they do? They went in there and painted everything black so they wouldn't know it was up there. Okay? It did. It was inside the church, just back behind where those people are standing. We had to dip down and get up, and then it was there. It's where it opens up into a great big, room. Okay, go ahead and go to the next one. So on the right side, you can see those columns. That's where we lined up to go. That's going backwards. We were way back behind that door. That's the people waiting to get in to the church. There's a big long line past that door. And then once you get through this door and down, we were waiting, and right here on the right side is the hole to go down to the cave where they believe that Jesus was born. So here again, you're down probably 20 feet below ground level of today. It has been built and rebuilt where today it's 20 foot above it where the old roads and stuff were. And they believe that it was a cave, that Jesus, it was the house, there's no room for the inn. The inn, they think, is not really a proper definition. It should have been the house was full. So they said, well, you could go stay with their animals in the cave. That's where they kept them. Okay, go to the next one. This one's going to be real hard to see. But on the left, see right below the candles, there's a rock going across. It's that kind of it raised up from the marble floor. It's really hard to see, and you can look at it later. But that's a manger. So it's a rock manger that they believe, that he was laid in. In Luke 2:17, they came with haste and found Mary and Joseph and the Bible and the babe lying in a manger. The manger's there, 5 or 6 feet straight across from it. There was this cross, this hole, and that's actually a star in the floor that you looked into that hole and down. We couldn't look in it because it was up underneath, kind of like a fireplace. That is where the cave was, down underneath that even. So that's where they believe that he was born. Okay, next one. Then we jump over, we're still in Bethlehem, but they took us to one of their sponsors. They always had to sell some stuff. All this statues and everything is made of olive wood. They don't go out and cut the olive wood. The olive wood has had to die or fall or somehow in a storm broke loose. And they go out and gather it, and they make these elaborate sculptures. I mean, the one on the top is probably 3 foot long or 4 foot long and really carved up. I think that one was $15,000, that one on the top. The one on the left was for a church. They built one like that, or for a business, something. And it's kind of showing the cave-like atmosphere. I think that one was $30,000. So we went over to the section to buy something real cheap, mass-produced. But they had a lot of stuff. It was really pretty, really interesting what they told us, just kind of the history of it. And they also ran a restaurant, and that's where we ate lunch. It was really good lunch. Go ahead and go to the next one. Now we're going to Jerusalem. We are on the Mount of Olives, looking across Kidron Valley. You can kind of see it going down there. We're on this side, and the valley goes down, a little river going through it, and then it goes back up on the other side, and that is Jerusalem. Of course, that's the Dome of the Rock. It's where everybody kind of recognizes everything. That's also sitting on the very edge of the western wall, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that. You can see the base of the wall right there, part of it. On the right side, they have a place that they called the Tomb of David. And they had this draped like it was a coffin. It was split in a room that was split. The left side, the ladies could go in and pray there, and the right side, the men could go in and pray there. You had to wear a cap of so they either had their skull cap, or us guys had our ball caps if we were having them. Had to have your head covered. The ladies, of course, didn't have to, but the men did. So I cut the people out, but there were people praying here. They were just laying across this. They believe, I don't know how it could have existed from the time of David, but at least they think that's where it was at. Approximately, the tomb of David was at. Okay? And right next to that is where they think the upper room was. Here again, the top room on the left is representing the upper room. That upper room was probably down at floor level back in Jesus' times, because it would have been an upper room. Everything's 20 feet down. You got to recognize. It's not original. But they marked the places where they believed this was the upper room. So she told us that. We didn't get to go up there, so I snuck back and took a couple pictures just to have them. Okay, go to the next one. Now, this is the other place that we know that Jesus walked. This is coming from the Mount of Olives, and it's up there on the hill, coming down this way. This goes down the valley, and over on the right is the valley, and then walking back up. And see that gate that's sealed right now? That's the eastern gate. That's where they would go in, and right behind that was their temple. So that was the road that we know Jesus traveled. And it may have been the same stones, they may have been replaced, we don't know exactly, but that would have been that area when he went for Palm Sunday. He came into the temple that day, went back out, and then the next week they went and found him on the Mount of Olives, and brought him back down back up to be his trial. That's also the eastern gate. Those were sealed by the Ottomans back in 1300 because they knew the scripture was, he shall come through the eastern gate when he comes back. So they sealed it so he couldn't come back. Well, that's not going to stop him, okay? I can guarantee. There's steps in front of it. You can't really see it here, but more on the left. That's called the teaching steps. And that's where they believe when Jesus was 12, where he was found outside the temple there teaching the Sanhedrin. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is on that same road. They up on the wall, it was showing the disciples as they were going into Jerusalem. This is probably going, the left side they had going down to Jerusalem. They're all happy and everything. On the other side of the wall, I took another picture, didn't show it here, but that's where they're sad. After Mount Olives, they arrest him and they're taking him back, very same road. Matthew 26, 74 and 75 says, Then he began to curse and swear, saying, I do not know the man. Immediately a rooster crowed. Peter remembered the words of Jesus, who had said to him, Before the rooster crows, you will deny me 3 times. So he went out and wept bitterly. Who do you think the person on the right is? Peter. It's a representation of Peter because the cock's up there, the crow, he's up there on the top. We're at Caphius, the Roman, the Sanhedrin, leader of the Sanhedrin. We're at his house right here. It's on a back here on the back side of that is where they believe that happened, where he denied him 3 times. Okay, let's go to the next one. We're on top of them, or on the side there of Mount Olives. It's hard to see, they've got some rating, but that's an olive tree. It's probably 10 foot wide. It's probably, they said that's the oldest one that they know of, and it's 3,000 years old. It was there probably when Jesus was there. And then you can see that it is a garden. Everything was pretty beautiful. They kept it up really nice. They had a nice rose garden there. And of course, that building over there is a church where they would have, they think, and we'll show you here in just a second. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. This is inside Jerusalem now, but they believe it was outside of the walls of Jerusalem then. This is where they believe Jesus was crucified, in that building in the church. That's where he died. That's where he was buried. And on the right, in the middle, you can see an artwork there that they had up in there where they had taken Jesus down off the grave, Joseph and Nicodemus, and were getting his body ready to put in the grave. And they believe, they don't think it's the actual one, it's a representation of it. On the right is similar to the stone that they used for the laying out of his body. And that's right in front of that building. Inside of that building is where they think was Golgotha, where some people think was Golgotha. We didn't get to go in it because the line to get in there was like 2 or 3 hours long. We couldn't even get into that building. But there were several other pictures that we took. You could go up a ladder. Go ahead and go to the next one. I don't guess I showed that. And then the Christians, I'll say it that way, that was the Roman Catholics and the Greek Orthodox, and there's 6 different churches that believe he was born there. This one is a little bit further outside. This is what they believe is the garden tomb. They believe this is where Jesus was buried. You can see it's a bigger opening, was a bigger opening, and they've cut it back down over here, put some new rock into it. There was no stone in front of it. The one on the right is one like a stone that there would have been. See the little trough between the people? It would have been in that trough and it would have rolled across the door. You can kind of see a little bit, and we had to step up to go into it. The right-hand picture is inside that tomb. It was just chiseled out of rock, and they would have been laying on the stones there, on the rock. They'd lay the bodies out. Typically, when a family did that, they'd have 3 or 4 spaces there, like that one was. Whenever they would need another space, if it was, after a year or two, they'd come back, get the bones, gather them up, and put them in a little box and set them alongside or back over the side, and then place a new body there. Of course, Jesus' tomb, they didn't do that. There was no no bones to pick up. Okay, go to the next one. This is the Wailing Wall, the Western Wall. You can see as we're coming out, big plaza. Here again, Jerusalem is even broken up into part of it is in where the Israelis take care of it, and part of it is in the Palestine area. This is the one, the Temple Mount is excluded. Arabs are supposed to be, now they're letting more people go up on top of the mountain, Temple Mount, but not very many. You're not supposed to pray there. You're not supposed to do anything. That's where the Dome of the Rock is. But we could pray down here. This is where you'd go. Again, the men would have to get a little yarmulke or something to cover their head, and they could go into the left side. It kind of comes down this side, and this is the men's side. And right there where that umbrella is, it cuts across. You can see that bridge over here on the right-hand picture. That's where the women went. The women had to go to the other side, and there's a separation between them where they could pray. And that's a water fountain there. It's not to drink. It's to wash your hands, clean yourselves off, anything before you go pray. Okay? And I had some up-close pictures, but I didn't want to bore you with those. And now we go down to the southern part of Israel, which is, you can see Jerusalem is the top northwest corner. We're down around the Dead Sea. We went to Masada. That's what I was trying to think about a while ago, where it's on the Dead Sea. We also went to En Gedi, and we'll show you a little couple pictures of those. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is En Gedi. Most of you may recognize it. 1 Samuel 24:1 says, "Now it happened when Saul had returned from following the Philistines that it was told him, saying, 'Take note, David is in the wilderness of En Gedi.'" You can see on the right-hand side, that's the way it looked everywhere getting to it. We drove for an hour or more getting down to it. Just rocks, and that's also where Qumran was, where they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. See all the little holes up in there? That's how they'd have to get, they found those in this area. That's also where David hid from Saul, was in one of those caves. We don't know which one exactly, but, and then when Saul went and slept in one of the caves and David come up behind him and cut his robe, you're right in this area. If you can see right where the scripture is, that's a little stream going down. We walked through there. It's a nature reserve, and there was this nice clear pool, clear running water there. You can get in it. We had pictures of people. One guy stuck his head under the water and got it all wet. But that's where they refreshed themselves when they were fighting the Philistines, because the Philistines was to the west over against the Mediterranean Sea. And down, go ahead and go to the next one, down by En Gedi, as you saw on the map, is Masada. This was another fortress that Herod built, and it's on the very right-hand side. You can't tell, but it's stepped down. That was his palace. It looked out over the Dead Sea, and you can kind of look on this picture where we went up. You can see the Dead Sea. It's a couple miles over there, and this is where the people, the Romans, after Jesus left, and I think it was 60 or 70 AD, where the Jews revolted, they all came to Masada here. And I may have my time frames wrong, I'm not sure. But They stayed up there, and it took the Romans, I think, 2 years to breach that, to get up to them, to take them over. And by the time they took them over, they were all dead. How high we are. We drove up there, and we'd had a pretty long day, and one of the guys looked up and he said, "Oh, I'm not walking up there," because it's 1,000 feet up in the air. I mean, from the top. And you can see the trail here. It goes back and forth, back all the way down. About midway there is where you'd have to walk from. That's called, I think, the Snake Trail. You could actually walk up there, but we had a little gondola that we rode, and it dropped you off right here, and then you could walk around. Go ahead and go to the next one. And it looks out over the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea is a Dead Sea, but it's live with minerals. There's organisms in it. There's not fish or any mammals because it's so salty, not just table salt, all kinds of minerals that's in it. They have part of this on that right side. You see that kind of going across? They would have factories set up mining that stuff, and they would ship it all over. The Dead Sea products, I don't know if you've seen that in beauty care or anything like that. They mine that and they sell it all over the world. But it's 13 times more salty than the ocean. It's also the lowest body of water on earth. Everything flows into it from that area, from the mountains and everything. And it is shrinking. You can see on the left side, it has been way up here, but it's slowly dehydrating. There's not as much water coming into it as is going out. Now, part of that is they are recycling the water. They use 180% of their water there. They recycle 180%. That's what she told us, that they go over and over, use it. Everything about it, they have made the water to make the lands just flourish. Right outside of this, just up the road a little bit, they had groves and groves and groves of date palms. And I've taken some pictures, but I didn't show you here. And they farm those, and those go all over the world. And those things, as long as your finger, I mean, the dates they're huge. The carrots that they grew there, they were that long and about that big around. They were just, the vegetables just do great there for some reason. And the last picture that I kind of promised from the first, if you go to the next one. On the left side, you see what they call the Western Bank. On the right side, it says Western Bank. On the left side, that's actually Judea and Samaria. The very dark portions, dark orange, that's the Area A. That's where the Palestinians have been through the Oslo Accords. This is one off the Oslo Accords where they agreed to let the Palestinian people have their own land. Those kind of dark yellow pieces are where they gave it to them.